bra showing? No, I'm not getting dressed. I haven't been dressed for weeks. You have to leave the house to get dressed. Oh, hey! Hi, it's me, Wilma Fingerdoo, with the Fingerdoo review of RuPaul's Drag Race Season 12, Episode 6, The Snatch Game. Now, before we get started, I just want to thank, once again, my tippers on PayPal. I wrote them down because you know how I am with names. Richard Coakley, Carolyn Gomez-Tom, and Donna Kaufman not only tipped me, but she's also supporting me on Patreon. So thank you twice, Donna. That's so sweet of you. And I also want to send a shout out to Rita. Rita is a tipper on PayPal, but she's also a supporter on Patreon. And it actually may be the name of somebody's dog, Rita Hayworth, and not a real person. And I just love knowing that. Well, and now you do too. I also want to thank St. Carrie. It was a female. It's a French, STE is French for saint, unless I misread it wrong. It was STD. I don't know. But St. Carrie, I'm going to assume badly. I'm not going to gender you. I'm not going to gender you. St. Carrie bought a Jorge Drink Me t-shirt off of Redbubble, and I want to thank them for that. That's lovely. Speaking of Redbubble, they have pins now. You know, badges, those little round pins. So you can now get a Jorge Drink Me pin from Redbubble, and they come in two sizes, 1.25 inches and 2 inches and a quarter. The 1.25 inches is $4.36, and the 2.25 inches is $4.67. I ordered some. They should be here in a year or two. But once they come in, I'll show you what they look like. But I love badges myself. Like I'm a huge fan of that. So I'm just thrilled that Redbubble's offering that. So that's done. Now, on to more important things. Jorge, drink me. Ooh, look at this. It's like a salad buffet with an umbrella. It's a Caesar. Oh, that's lovely. I like a Caesar. I like a salty rim on my Caesar, but this one's got pepper, which gives it extra kick. Also, we have a paper umbrella. You know, now I don't feel so bad for not wearing a hat. I know some of you are sitting there going, where's the hat? Well, I was going to wear my sleep mask from my lovely ensemble from the Peg Bundy collection. But it was blocking the dew, and I just got my dew done. So I figured I would just eschew that. But now that I have the paper umbrella, well, the nice thing about a paper umbrella is it's immediately a little hat, but also you can keep track of how many drinks you had if you keep sticking them in your hair. Just saying. So this is a lovely Caesar. For those of you who don't know, Caesar was invented in Canada. It's tomato juice, vodka, Worcestershire sauce, some horseradish, you rim the glass, and clamato juice, which sounds gross, and it is. It's basically just clam juice. You know when you get clams? Whatever's left after you take the clams out. It's disgusting. But it gives it that salty kick, barf, that makes the Caesar, I think, truly Canadian. I'm just saying. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so let's get to it. Well, the girls said goodbye to Nikki Doll, bless her, and I think they were really shook over this elimination because they were expecting big things from Nikki. Unfortunately, I think they were expecting big things from Nikki because she's beautiful, and the sad thing with beautiful people, and I'm not saying that this is Nikki Doll, but a lot of beautiful people haven't done anything to be beautiful. They just showed up. That's just Jesus loved them the most, and that's how they look. They don't do anything. They don't perfect that. I mean, sure, there's finessing, but short of that, these people win. And they're not often encouraged to develop personalities or skills. So they often end up just looking good until you ask them to do something. Miss Fame! So it can be a bit of an uphill battle, and it can be a bit of a mystery to the others who just look and go, oh, gorge, wish it was me. I'm not one of those people. Seriously. Of course, no one felt the cold slap of an elimination more than Miss Heidi because, well, she was on the bottom next to her. But I think the one thing that was good about this elimination for Heidi is it lit that fire under her ass to just try that little extra harder and also let those other queens know that she's not one to be taken lightly, especially during a lip sync. Seriously. Britta was still kicking her dead horse, a.k.a. Aiden, over how she couldn't believe that she wasn't safe when the person she was in all the scenes with was. Especially when that person was Hayden, because she already doesn't think well of her. And then the whole thing about thinking, well, I was in the scenes with all of you. I didn't suck harder than you. Well, it's not about how hard you suck. You heard me. God bless Widow Von Du, who agreed with Aiden when she stood up for herself and made the point, which is basically, it's drag. Bring it or leave. I just wish that Aiden brought it more. I'm just saying. Good for Gigi. Do you see what I did there? She wasn't going to let Britta's shenanigans distract her. Her eye is on the prize, and anything less is unacceptable. So that's how you win, Gigi. Just saying. The next day in the workroom, well, there was Ru. No warning, no fanfare, no she done had hers. There she was. And, like pulling a Band-Aid off, no mini challenge, just the maxi challenge. Snatch Game! The queens were thrilled. The queens are always thrilled until they start thinking about what they've decided to do. I'll tell you one thing. I think that most queens are excited to get to Snatch Game because it's the 5th episode or so. It's usually there. It's kind of almost in the middle. It kind of, if you've got that far, well, you've done better than 5 or 6 other queens. So I think that that's why most queens are excited. But still, regardless, they got right down to it. Britta said she was going to do Jennifer Holliday, which immediately had me worried because as much as I love Jennifer Holliday, how do you let people know you're Jennifer Holliday without going, ha, you know, that's her thing, is a big breath at the end of a big note. And I think, sure, she's easy to make fun of. When she's singing, she makes a lot of faces, but sweet beats. The sounds that come out of her face are so brilliant. I don't care what she looks like. She could light herself on fire and run around if that's what it takes to sing like that. Hell, I'd do it. Just saying. At least Britta had the wherewithal to be nervous about her performance because, as she said, Snatch Game, all of America is judging you. I just feel it's sad that she didn't think about that 2 weeks ago when she was being a mean girl. Just saying. Jada's choice of doing Cardi B seemed to be a bit better, mostly because, well, she's more current and she pops. I don't normally make that sound. I'm so impressed. Poor Widow Von Du should have been worried the minute she put whatever that thing was, because it wasn't a wig, on her head. And nobody knew who she was doing. She said it was Tina Turner. But to me, she looked like a cross between a Russian diplomat's wife in a fur hat on Red Square, or the kind of fuzz that grows on cheese if you leave it in the fridge too long. Do you know what I'm saying? My point is, love had nothing to do with that wig. But then Widow announced that she was also going to be doing Ike Turner. I hope not in the same wig. Gee whiz. Still, I think the only reason she thought of Tina and Ike was so that she could do 2 people on stage, like Bob, the drag queen, did, and maybe get some extra credit or impress the judges a little more. Nina West did it as well, and she did it successfully as well. But they weren't trying to impersonate Ike Turner. That guy's about as funny as a kick to the hoolies. Literally. Seriously. Speaking of a kick to the hoolies, Aiden chose to impersonate Patricia Quinn, who played Magenta in the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I'm lucky, he's lucky, you're lucky, we're all lucky. And that's as much as I can do from Patricia Quinn, and it's still more than Aiden was capable of, bless. I think there were 2 problems with Aiden. I think that the first thing was he's often watched Rocky Horror Picture Show and thought he looked like Patricia Quinn, which he does. Certainly that's a face he could portray. And I thought his makeup looked like Patricia Quinn looks now. I thought he did an excellent job with his face. But clearly he idolizes her, likes her enough that he's chased her down to the point where he's had lunch with her. And the problem when you have an idol, you're often a little too revered with them to make fun of them. And I was worried for Aiden for this challenge, just basically on that. Seriously. The next day in the workroom, Ru showed up with Ms. Vanjie to check on the girls' progress and to hopefully give them some advice on how not to suck, like Vanjie did on her Snatch Game. Woof. First up on Ru and Vanjie's Goodwill Tour was Ms. Heidi, and she greeted them with her fabulous catchphrase, feeling blessed and highly favored. And I have to say, I love that. I've never heard anyone say this before. She said it on RuPaul's Drag Race. And yet, in the last couple of weeks, I've heard it in a couple of other places. Now, I've only been watching Netflix and Prime Video, so it's a movie or something. Someone says it somewhere, and it is the funniest thing. I've never heard it before, but I'm glad that I've heard it from Ms. Heidi. Ru loved it too, so much so that she saw a whole complete character being born just from that phrase itself, and suggested maybe that Heidi should possibly do something like that, because she was not feeling her first choice, which was Leslie Jones. Now, I thought that it was a good idea, but Heidi's very meek and quiet, and Leslie Jones is neither of those things. Hell, she is a loud person. So I was looking forward to seeing how Heidi would do with that, because she certainly wasn't taking Vanjie and Ru's suggestion that she do one of the Real Housewives of some unfortunate city. And rightly so, because Heidi, like myself, had no idea who they were talking about. Seriously. Next up was Just Jan, and she told Ru and Vanjie that she was going to be doing Bernadette Peters. Now, I love Bernadette Peters, but the same as with Britta's Jennifer Holliday choice. What do I know? I mean, I know more about Bernadette Peters. I've seen her act in more things. Jennifer Holliday is just a singer. And I don't mean to dismiss her. She sings. Unless you're seeing her sing, you don't really see her. At least with Bernadette Peters, she's acted in things, so you can see her being a person, not singing only. And her live concerts, which she's quite known for, she does a lot of back and forth with the audience, and it's lovely. But it's still very showy. It's still a very contrived image that, unless you know her personally, you wouldn't know the real Bernadette Peters. But I'm a super big fan. That said, I was a little nervous for Jan, because how do you make Bernadette Peters funny if all she's known for is her little girl voice and her big mop of red hair? Just asking. I'm surprised that she didn't take Ru's suggestion and do Kris Jenner. I mean, she's known for it. It's what started her in drag. That would be like Chad Michaels not doing Cher. Seriously. Crystal Method was next, and I'm with Ru and Vanjie. I had no idea who this Poppy person was. And the more I heard about her, the less I cared to know. I'm sorry to say. But I really like Crystal, and I was sorry how emotional she got after she told Ru and Vanjie who she was doing. And then they both seemed to kind of shoot her down. It really got to her. And so much so that it forced a third hug out of RuPaul. I am so serious. God bless. I think that it was the power of the El DeBarge mullet that forced this tender moment out of Ru and Crystal. And I have to say, in Ru's defense, she got much better at these hugs. Remember that first one with Plastique Tiara? Looks so awkward. Like there needed to be a parent around or something. It was weird. Just saying. Here's to you, Ru. Learning to hug. Next up was Ms. Vanjie's next husband, our Ms. Jackie Cox, bless her. I have to say, right out of the gate, when they showed the shot of the wig from a 3/4 angle, and Ru said Ruth Buzzy, I immediately was like, oh my God, that is Ruth Buzzy. Right there. That's Ruth Buzzy. I mean, with no nose. But that's Ruth Buzzy. That's exactly what her hair looked like. But then when she turned it and said she was doing Lisa Rinna, yeah, I saw that completely. That is exactly it. And so did RuPaul right away. Ms. Vanjie was still swimming in the warm pools of Ms. Jackie Cox's eyes. Or something. Maybe a little lower and to the left. Gigi stumped Ru and Vanjie with her choice, Maria the Robot. And as much as Ru kind of suggested that she possibly pick another character, that a robot wouldn't be a good choice for banter, I was really impressed with Gigi, how she stood her ground. Like, she was able to articulate to them, I get what you're saying, but I'm not worried. That's how you talk to RuPaul. Now, I understand why Sherry Pie was cut out of the walkthrough in the workroom with Vanjie, and I'm not mad about it. But I have to say, there's a part of it, it's just so blatantly obvious. Because they are showing the show in its entirety, and I understand. I'm not saying it should have been there, but I have to say, as a viewer who is bothered by Sherry Pie and her catfishing, I still find it harder to watch them act like she wasn't there. So that's just my thing. It just seems as weird on some weird level for me. I don't know how you felt, but it was blatantly obvious that they just absolutely cut Sherry Pie out of that whole walkthrough. And I'm sorry they did, because I was really intrigued to hear not only who she was going to do for the Snatch Game, but if she had other choices and what they possibly were as well. Just saying. But there was no time to miss Sherry Pie, because it was off to the Snatch Game with our contestants from Mean Girls, Daniel Ferenzis and Jonathan Bennett. Well, this wasn't the worst Snatch Game in the history of Snatch Games, but I don't know. I'm feeling like I feel like since Ginger Minge and Kennedy Davenport did Adele and Little Richard, I haven't really enjoyed a Snatch Game. No, that's not true. I'm going to say Trinity the Tuck's Caitlyn Jenner was pretty funny. But that said, this wasn't the worst Snatch Game I've ever seen. But there were some bad performances in it. Seriously. I thought Heidi did a great job. I mean, she was funny, she was engaging, she was able to banter with Ru, but that is the quietest Leslie Jones on record. When Leslie Jones is live tweeting from the privacy of her own home alone, she's way louder. I'm just saying. Our Ms. Cox did a great job as Lisa Rinna, promoting her clothing line, her husband, and her penchant for red wine. Good for you, Jackie, seriously. Jada Essence Hall looked fabulous as Cardi B, but her performance for me was meh. I don't know if she was overshadowed by her own outfit, or she needed to be louder or find a better way to articulate Cardi B. Either way, it wasn't a complete miss, but it wasn't a home run either. I have to say, I was very worried for Jan's choice of Bernadette Peters as a character on Snatch Game. And I'll tell you, I still am not a fan of that voice. That was not Bernadette Peters' voice. I don't know whose voice that was, but Jan committed to it, and it didn't waver through the whole thing. But what I was amazed at was actually how much Jan ended up looking like Bernadette Peters. I mean, she didn't look exactly like her, but they certainly looked like they could have been sisters or identical cousins, I'm just saying. As RuPaul put it, Widow Von Du was serving us a salty Tina, which is my finishing move, the salty Tina. Yeah, you gotta wear goggles. But I feel that Widow's mood was really the product of her finally realizing how ugly that wig was on her head. Oh, I couldn't believe I'm still looking at that cheese mold. Oh, bless her. The only thing worse than Widow's Tina Turner was her doing Ike at all. Seriously. Aiden's Patricia Quinn was a big waste of everyone's time. If you're going to play somebody who's only known for one thing, then you had better know a few things about that one thing they're known for. I'm just saying. I mean, it's the most iconic film in the history of sexual growth in the world. This film has caused more people to get in touch with their own true identity than any other film ever. And to not know what year it was made, and to not know just some of the stuff. There's just some stuff about it everyone knows. It's like going to the Rocky Horror Picture Show and not knowing when to throw toast. Do you know what I'm saying? And I was just so disappointed, because this is clearly Aiden's wheelhouse, and she should have come in literally knowing everything about Rocky Horror Picture Show and Patricia Quinn. And I think the only reason that she picked Patricia Quinn was A, she looked a bit like her, and B, she'd had lunch with her. I mean, she said she had lunch with her. They could have been in the same restaurant. Seriously. Sitting there and constantly saying that you don't remember or know what they're talking about is a surefire way of getting yourself sent home. Ooh, have I said too much? Thank God Britta distracted everyone with how bad Aiden was sucking by doing whatever the hell she was doing with her face. I know she was trying to impersonate some of the faces that Jennifer Holliday makes when she's singing, but she makes those faces when she's singing. For you to sit there and portray one of the world's most famous singers and not sing at least one thing? Seriously, Britta, it's like you don't want to win this thing at all. I think Crystal did okay as Poppy, but she still sucked. I'm so sorry to say it. Plus, she scared the heck out of Jonathan Bennett, I'm just saying. And I hate to say it because they avoided her in the workroom, but Sherry Pie's Katharine Hepburn was hilarious. A lot of people don't know who Katharine Hepburn is anymore because she actually took a step back from film. She won, I think, 3 Oscars. We were talking about Ruth Gordon. Ruth Gordon and her husband wrote a movie called Adam's Rib, which Katharine Hepburn starred in. But as she got to the end of her life, she developed, I think it's Parkinson's. I'm sure it is. That she developed this tremor. And I'm sure part of the reason that she stepped back from films. But one of the last films she made, I think the only last film she made, was On Golden Pond. And she was nominated for an Oscar for that too. And it's one of her best films, I think, because she just plays a strong, old, frail woman. Most people, when they impersonate Katharine Hepburn, do it with that tremor. And so the fact that Sherry Pie turned that shake into her writing so that every answer that she wrote was just this chicken scratch. And they, well, what's that say? And then she would look at it and say whatever their answer was. So funny. And you could tell that Daniel and Jonathan were just loving her. I'm sorry they didn't show more. I understand why. I'm not disputing why. I'm just sorry. It seemed like a performance that should not have been missed. It's too bad. It's a shame. Thank God Gigi's How Do You Solve a Robot Like Maria was such a huge hit. From calling Rue a bitch off the top, from her facial twerks and she didn't stop. The whole time she was there on set, she was in character and gave the camera nothing but fabulous footage. And that whole thing where she was trying to pick up paper with her hands, so funny, so genius. You could just see the other girls in the back like, Gigi! No one expected her to make a robot funny. Certainly not RuPaul. Just saying. The next day in the workroom, as the queens got ready for the runway, more than a few of them started fretting about their own performance during the Snatch Game. So to make themselves feel better about it, they started to pick on Aiden because it was clear she sucked the hardest, just saying. Something that was surprising was to find out from Widow as she was explaining her love and admiration of Tina Turner was that because she had survived abuse in her life. And, you know, I have to say, it's always so surprising to see such strong people tell you that they were abused. And you kind of look at them and go, why would you allow that? Well, it's not about being a strong person. It's not about allowing. These situations are very unique. Each one has its own triggers that make that person do things they normally wouldn't do or agree to do things they normally wouldn't do. And ultimately just to live in a way they normally wouldn't do. So I think it's very important and brave of Widow to share a story like that so people know there are other people in the world that experience these things. Whether you're Tina Turner, Widow Von Du, or Slappy McTickle Puncher. Never one of my drag queen names in high school, I'm just saying. Gigi Goode also had a moment with the room in sharing that she considers herself gender fluid. And what was interesting about it was that she said that this was the first time that she had ever said it really out loud. And I think that's interesting because we're living in an interesting time now where you don't have to necessarily be one thing or do one thing. You don't have to want to be a woman to wear makeup. You don't necessarily have to be anything to do anything. And we're living in a world now where it's the great unknown. We're really exploring this territory as we go. And the rules change, they fine tune, they redefine as we go. So it's very hard territory to go through. So to have somebody like Gigi say it in such a simple way and to just explain why she feels that way, I think is also a very important thing for people to hear. Here's to you, Gigi, living your truth, I'm just saying. Do you remember in the Meet the Queens video when Gigi said that she couldn't wait for us to meet her mom? Well, we kind of did this episode. Because in talking about her gender fluidness and her whole process, keep in mind Gigi's only 21. So 6 years ago, when she was starting to question life in general, her fabulous mother took her to see her gay uncle. God bless Gigi that she had a gay uncle like that. Somebody to take her under their wing and explain to them who RuPaul was, for sweet Marie and the Ships at Sea's sake. I'm so serious. I remember when I was quite young, and the older gay men that I was trying to learn things from would say things like Liza Minnelli, and I'd go, who's Liza? Or I'd want to say, who's Liza Minnelli? But they would always go, oh my God, how do you not know who that is? I forget how young you are. And this was like 40 years ago. And I'm just sitting here now, people are going, well, who's that? It's like, well, that's what I wanted to say. But I was too shy to ask. So I'm impressed. I'm just saying. On the main runway, Ru looked good. I didn't love the dress. I didn't hate it. You know what it was about this dress? I liked where Zaldi was going with it, looking like the whole thing was just poured over her. But a couple of areas on the dress when Ru was just standing there looked like they were fighting the placement of the gathers. When she moved, it was all fine. But it just, when she was standing there, it looked like it hung funny on one hip. And then this area here, that one thing that came across, where it all joined here just looked overworked. And here's something that happens in sewing a lot. If you try to manipulate, sometimes you put something in, it doesn't sew, then you stitch it here, and then you add a stay stitch, and then you do something, and you keep, to make it sit the way you want it, and it actually can end up making it worse. And that's what I felt this area looked a little tortured for me. It wasn't sitting properly in that strap that went up. So as much as I liked the dress, I think I liked the idea of it more than the actual garment. But I wasn't mad at it. I'm just saying. I also have to say I wasn't mad at much on the runway this week either. Of course, the theme was Frozen, the musical, and they must have paid a few pennies to have it mentioned more than 6 times because they even put frozen trees on the stage. So it certainly added to a chilly environment. I'm just saying. First out was Heidi in Closet, and I have to say I just loved this outfit. The tall hat, the silhouette, the proportions, the way the coat was open in the front, although it was still full coverage. She had a little fur skirt on, those boots, not to mention that big muff. I think this is the nicest that Heidi's looked this whole contest, and I, for one, was impressed. Here's to you, Heidi. Good job, seriously. A blonde Ms. Cox worked that runway in a gown that was inspired by Elsa's crown, and I kind of saw it. I got it, but the iridescence of the fabric that she used and the pointiness in the skirt and up the front and then on those arms made it look like leaves or blades of grass. So I didn't see Elsa as much as I saw like a fairy. Do you know what I'm saying? So as much as I liked the outfit, it just, I guess it just, the coloring made me think more of spring than winter. Just saying. Jada Essence Hall outfit was fabulous, even though she has no idea where Antarctica is. Just saying. Jen's outfit was all right, but I felt there was way more effort to it than the impact it delivered. I got where she was going with the latex dripping to make icicles and that, but it didn't look like that. It looked more like white and blue stripes, and the mask with the wig was just, I don't know, the fact that she had to hold it up. Once she got rid of that, it seemed better, but I don't know. I can see why Jen keeps landing in the middle. Just saying. Widow's Titanic survivor realness was hilarious. I love that she was blowing the whistle the whole time that she was out there. And I have to say, that outfit, the muted tones and everything, I thought it was absolutely perfect as a period piece for her to be wearing something that uninteresting on the runway. For me, it was one of the highlights. Just saying. Gigi Good's Ice Cream Girl was too adorable for words. I loved all of it. She has such a great eye for proportion. The stockings coming up to the knee, and then the length of that skirt, perfect. The distance was perfect. And I want that wig. Just saying. Aiden's outfit was okay. I mean, it was a cute dress with some really crappy white. I wish the marabou she had added to it was bigger, or if that was the marabou that came with the dress, shame on her, she should have put bigger on it. She should have, even if it was cotton batting, if something, it just needed to have more there. And then the little monster hat, that was all right, but it just was too simple. And I mean, no offense to Aiden, but I certainly, for one, have just lost interest. That's all. I don't hate her, I just don't care so much anymore. Britta's outfit was lovely, even though it was mostly pink and yellow, which had nothing to do, in my mind, with ice or being frozen. It looked more like fire or a sunset. But it was a nice dress. She certainly paid a lot of money to have it made, and the only thing I have to say about it is it's the same silhouette she seems to wear all the time. And I'm not saying the silhouette looks bad on her. It looks great on her. It's probably why she wears it all the time, but I don't know. She's got to mix it up. She's got to do something, I'm just saying. I was also impressed with Crystal's runway look because it was a suit. Now, she said it was inspired by the Mr. Freeze character from the Batman comics, and when she said that, I got it more. But just as an outfit on its own, I have to say, I hate pants on a drag queen. I like this outfit. I'm just saying. So, when the runway lights dimmed, it was Heidi, Jada Essence Hall, Jan, and Widow Von Du who were safe. So they retired to the Untucked Lounge. Of the queens that were left, well, all the judges agreed that they absolutely loved our Ms. Cox. Her Snatch Game was hilarious. Her runway was adorable. This was definitely a good week for Jackie, just saying. No one hated Aiden's runway look, but they certainly weren't impressed by it either. They were even less impressed with Aiden's Patricia Quinn, for obvious reasons, I'm just saying. The judges also didn't hate Britta's runway look, but the same cannot be said for her Jennifer Holliday. It was so distracting and so grotesque in its exaggerations that it actually made the judges rethink Britta's runway look. I'm just saying. Another look the judges loved was Crystal's, but her performance as Poppy seemed to just set her up for failure. I'm just saying. And again, I'm just bringing this up because it just is so glaringly obvious they didn't show Sherry coming down the runway. Just saying. That said, the judges loved her. They loved her. Seriously. But who cares how good Sherry Pie was, because the judges clearly worshipped Gigi Good. They couldn't get enough of her Maria the Robot. They were so impressed with her performance. And they absolutely loved the juxtapositioning of that stiff personality to her fun and flirty runway. Just absolutely a fantastic week for Gigi. And no surprise that she was this week's winner, I'm just saying. You know who was a close second, though, was Jonathan Bennett as Valerie Cherish. Oh my God, that was the most impressive impersonation I've ever seen. Because mostly, I wasn't expecting it, just saying. So who was in the bottom this week? Well, sadly, it was Aiden. I'm not surprised. It was a long time coming, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I really like Aiden, but yeah, she was starting to wear her welcome a little thin. But what was interesting about her being in the bottom was Britta was there too. And I think a lot of people might have been expecting Crystal to land there, but I think the judges liked her runway more. I think there's something about Crystal, her uniqueness, her difference that just makes her stand out a bit more. Wherein I think with Britta, as polished and as seasoned as she is, she's really not reinventing the wheel in any way. I'm just saying. Of course, the feud between Aiden and Britta did nothing to make this more interesting in my eyes. I'm just saying. Of course, I'm lying. So the girls had to lip sync to Frozen by Demi Lovato, and I don't know. I wasn't impressed by either of them. Neither of them did anything. I mean, I expected Aiden to do what she did, which was more or less nothing. Because she's just so awkward on stage. When she's standing there, like even the runway, she just holds weird poses. Like she's never watched a runway or tried to walk a runway. She just all of a sudden now is trying to figure it out. And I feel that that was the case with her lip syncing. I don't know how often she's lip synced before, especially maybe in a room where people were paying attention for a change. I don't know. But it certainly was an awkward performance from her. But it was not much better from Britta. If she hadn't have just lit those little firecrackers off in her hand, I don't know. I still think Britta would have stayed, but I think she would have been in real jeopardy of maybe being sent home along with Aiden. I'm just saying. But that's not how it played out. Aiden sashayed, and, well, Britta shantaed for another day. So now there's only 9 girls left. Who do you think's going to be next? I'm worried for Crystal only because she seems to be cracking under the pressure. But who's to say that Jan won't crack if she doesn't break out of her safe little zone that she's been stuck in the last 5 weeks? All we can do is tune in to RuPaul's Drag Race next week and find out how it all plays out. And once you're done, you all come back and see me so you and I can compare notes. Now, don't forget to like this video if you did. Don't lie to me or anything. I'm so serious. Also, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, first of all, what the heck is wrong with you? Second of all, do it now. Just do it now. And thirdly, if you would like to support me in any way you would like, I have some options down below. We have my PayPal. You can do a one-time tip, or you can support me on Patreon, where you can become part of the weekly watch, and my credit roll at the end of this video. And I have merch on Redbubble. So there you have it. You're up to speed. All that we have now to do is Untucked, and I'll have that up in a short little while. So until next week, miss me. Mwah. Seriously, Jorge. Oh, I'm almost done my salad.